I don't normally editorialize too much, but 3 points. First, no matter where David puts me on the list, who I follow, who I precede, whatever, you are all tough acts to follow. And I really appreciate that. Robert talking about that Genesis moment when he found Ambit magazine. My Genesis moment as a writer was as a sophomore in high school in 1963. Walked into the high school library, and there on one of the bookshelves was a brand new, unopened copy of a book of Carl Sandburg's poetry. Totally changed me. And last but not least, today's theme is supposedly living, which I keep thinking is the only thing poetry is about anyway. So here we go. Okay. On the concourse, after the 1959 photograph of a man wearing two hats by William Klein. The room goes on forever. The back wall forming a horizon. The wide arched ceiling sits atop windows over faced windows, high enough to mimic heaven as announced by any cathedral. Everything and everyone within is a study in light and shadows, of Babel's amplified echoes, motion made fluid when captured. Except that is for a seated woman, all but hidden in black and white as she stares at her husband, and he, standing frozen, digging deep for keys or tickets or a match, bent at the waist, the better to see. There's a mystery here still, deep years later. He wears two fedoras. We can never know the reason. We will always scratch the itch. And my dog will always drop a bone in the middle of a reading. Okay. 3 takes on a 1959 photograph of a woman leaning out of a window in an apartment building. Among the possibilities, 1, I leaned as far out of the window as I could, waist bent over the black rail I clasped with the rightness of anger. He ran barefoot down the street, shoes and socks in one hand, shirt in the other, 3 stories below me. Passing couples turned their heads, some to follow his flight, some to find the source of my piercing screams. Mothers covered children's eyes or ears. Coward, I hollered as he rounded the corner. It's your child and you know it. 2, he hurried down the street, skirting couples and families in the cool of an autumn evening. She leaned out the window above, yelling, "Son, you forgot your school bag again." Pulling her head back into the apartment, she chuckled, mumbled to herself, "Just like his mother when I was his age. The nuns will set him right." And 3, a woman leaning from a 3rd-story window calls to a man hurrying down the stained concrete street, not caring if passers-by hear. "Tell your boss I'm the reason you stayed in bed late. I love you, sweetie." And lastly, traveler's chair. The room has changed little since the days I sat at my mother's feet, examining the morning's papers, comic strips, their helium-filled words slowly making sense, while she read the news of the world just outside and oceans away from the sitting room window. The chair is mine now, still set before the same window, some days filled by sun, others by clouds of many tempers, varieties of rain and snow and fog by season. I sit as my mother did, grounded by the familiar things around me, but also separated from them by the thin thickness of a lettered page. Racing down a beach on a perfectly black horse, I thank my mother. And I thank you all.